Hello, and welcome to another Read With Me. I'm yours truly, Isabel Bedell, and I'm here to read with you. So, we are reading the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And this guy, John C. Maxwell, he just happens to be the greatest of all time. And he put all these laws together to really formulate what it takes to become a great leader. And amazingly enough, every single chapter in this book has been amazing. We are currently in the law of empowerment, which is the 12th law, which is the 12th chapter of this book. And he mentions only secure leaders give power to others. So let's dive right into it. The last chapter that we went over was really good. We talked about the law of the inner circle and how if you do have an inner circle, there's only a few things that you have to do in order for them to trust you, continue to love you, and respect you. So in fact, in most cases, you will also need to develop them before they are ready to take their place in that circle. And he goes into mentioning that the right staff, the right group of people allowed that particular inner circle to just take things to the next level. He mentions that when he first got into Skyline, the church that he was assigned to, it was declining. And the first thing that he did when he went to Skyline was actually remove all the weak links. After interviewing each one by one, getting to know them, getting to feel the caliber of their leadership, getting to understand where they stand in the organization, he was able to identify, this person has to go, this person is not going to help us get to the next level. And when he did that, the right staff came in, the potential skyrocketed, and it became one of the largest organizations when it came to leadership within a church. So really important. And the reason being is if you don't have the empowerment side, that inner circle is not going to grow the way that you envision. So the law of empowerment, the one that we're going to go over today, it just solidifies how important it is to give to others more than what you want to receive. Okay, check this out. Nearly everyone has heard of Henry Ford, the revolutionary automobile industry innovator and legend in American business history. In 1903, he co-founded the Ford Motor Company with the belief that the future of the automobile lay in putting in within the reach of the average American worker. Ford mentions, "I will build a motor car for the multitude. I will be large enough for the family. It will be large enough for the family, but small enough for the individual to run and care for it. It will be constructed of the best materials by the best men to be hired, and after the simplest designs that modern engineering can advise. But it will also be so low in price that no man making a good salary will be able to own one and enjoy with his family the blessings of hours of pleasure in God's great open spaces." Henry Ford carried out that vision with the Model T, and it changed the face of the 20th century American life. And by 1914, Ford was producing nearly 50% of all automobiles in the United States. The Ford Motor Company looked like an American success story. But here's the lesser known chapter of the same story. However, all of Ford's story is not about positive achievement. And one reason is that he didn't embrace the law of empowerment. Henry Ford was so in love with his Model T that he never wanted to change or improve it, nor did he want anyone else to tinker with it. One day, when a group of his designers surprised him by presenting him the prototype of an improved model, Ford furiously ripped its doors off the hinges, and proceeded to destroy the car with his bare hands. For almost 20 years, the Ford Motor Company offered only one design. For 20 years, the Model T was the design that was, oh my God, for 20 years, that's 2 decades. That's a long time. Wow, how things have changed. Every year there's a new model of a car. And for 20 years, the Ford Motor Company offered only one design, the Model T, which Henry Ford had personally developed. It wasn't until 1927 that he finally grudgingly agreed to offer a new car to the public. The company produced the Model A, but it was incredibly far behind its competitors in technical innovations, of course. And despite its early head start and the incredible lead over its competitors, the Ford Motor Company market kept shrinking. By 1931, it was down to only 28%, a little more than half of what it produced 17 years earlier. Henry Ford was the antithesis of an empowering leader. Oof, damn, for John C. Maxwell to say that, that's a strong line. He continually undermined his leaders and overlooked over his shoulder of his people. He even created a sociological department within Ford Motor Company to check up on his employees and direct their private lives. As time went by, he became more and more eccentric. He once went into his accounting office and tossed the company's books into the street, saying, "Just put all the money we take in a big barrel, and when a shipment of material comes in, reach into the barrel and take out enough money to pay for it." Perhaps Ford's most peculiar dealings were with his executives, especially his son Edsel. The younger Ford had worked at the company since he was a boy. As Henry became more eccentric, Edsel worked harder to keep the company going. If it weren't for Edsel, the Ford Motor Company probably would have gone out of business in 1930. Henry eventually gave Edsel the presidency of the company, but at the same time, he undermined his son. Further, whenever a promising leader was rising up in the company, Henry tore him down. And as a result, the company kept losing its best executives. The few who stayed did so because they figured that someday old Henry would die and Edsel would finally take over and set things right. But that's not what happened. In 1943, Edsel died at the age of 49. Oh my gosh. Is this a movie? Another Henry Ford. Edsel's oldest son, the 26-year-old Henry Ford II, quickly left the Navy so that he could return to Dearborn, Michigan and take over the company. At first, he faced opposition from his grandfather's entrenched followers, but within 2 years, he gathered the support of several key people. He received the backing of the board of directors, which his mother controlled 41% of the Ford Motor Company stock, and then convinced his grandfather to step down so that he could become president in his place. Young Henry was taking over a company that hadn't made a profit in 15 years. At that time, it was losing $1 million a day. The young president knew he was in over his head. He set out to find the leaders. He set out to find leaders, and unfortunately, the first group actually approached him. Colonel Charles, aka Tex Thornton, headed a team of 10 men who had worked together at the War Department during World War II. Their contribution to Ford Motor Company was substantial. In the years to come, the group produced 6 company vice presidents and 2 presidents. The second influx of leadership came with the entrance of Ernie Breach, an experienced General Motor executive and the former president of Bendix Aviation. Young Henry hired him to be Ford's executive vice president, a position second to Henry's, with the expectation that he would take command and turn the company around. He succeeded. Breach quickly brought in more than 150 outstanding executives from General Motors, and by 1949, the Ford Motor Company was on a roll again. In that year, the company sold more than 1 million Fords, Mercurys, and Lincolns, the best sold since the Model A. So who's the boss here? If Henry Ford II had lived by the law of empowerment, the Ford Motor Company might have grown enough to eventually overtake General Motors and become the #1 car company again. But only secure leaders are able to give power to others, and Henry felt threatened. The success of Tex, Ernie, Louise, and legendary GM executive whom Breach had brought into the company made Henry worry about his own place at Ford. His position was based on the influence, but on his name and his family's control of company stock. So what was Henry's solution? Well, he began pitting one top executive against one another. And first, Thornton against Crusoe. Then, after Thornton was fired, he turned Crusoe against Breach. Ford biographers Peter and David described the second Henry Ford's method this way. Okay, this is how Henry Ford was perceived. Okay, this is so crazy. I guess it does skip a generation. You know, he was the oldest son, and Henry II, or Henry Ford I was the grandpa. Henry's instinct for survival manifested itself as craftiness, combined with a kind of weakness. He had endowed Crusoe with the power to do virtually whatever he wished. By withdrawing his grace from Breach and bestowing it into his lieutenant, he had made antagonists of the two men most vital to Ford's success. While Henry had lost confidence in Breach, however, he had left him with officially in charge because this increased his own maneuverability. And as Crusoe's official superior, Breach could be useful if Henry wanted to keep Crusoe in check. This became a pattern in the leadership of Henry Ford II, and any time an executive gained power and influence, Henry undercut that person's authority by moving him to a position with less clout, supporting the executive subordinates, and publicly humiliating him. This maneuver continued all the days Henry II was at Ford. As one Ford president, Lee Iacocca, commented after leaving the company, Henry Ford, as I would learn firsthand, had a nasty habit of getting rid of strong leaders. Iacocca says that Henry Ford II once described his leadership philosophy to him. Years before Iacocca himself became its target, Ford said, "If a guy works for you, don't let him get too comfortable. Don't let him cozy or set in his ways. Always do the opposite of what he expects. Keep your people anxious and off balance." That's intense. I don't agree with Henry at all. Both Henry Fords failed to abide by the law of empowerment rather than identifying leaders, building them up, giving them resources, authority, and responsibility, and then turning them loose to achieve. They alternately encouraged and undermined their best people. Their insecurity made it impossible for them to give power to others. Their insecurity made it impossible for them to give power to others, and ultimately it undermined their personal leadership potential, creating havoc in the lives of the people around them and damaging the organization. If leaders want to be successful, they have to be willing to empower others. I like the way President Theodore Roosevelt stated it. The best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and then self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it. To lead others well, we must help them to reach their potential. That means being on their side, encouraging them, giving them power, and helping them to succeed. That's not traditionally what we're taught about leadership. And what were the two leadership games we were taught as kids? King of the Hill and Follow the Leader. What was the object of King of the Hill? To knock other people down so that you can be the leader. And what's the point of Follow the Leader? You do things you know followers can't do to separate yourself from them, to make yourself look powerful. Oh, damn, that's so true. That's so true. The problem with those games is that to win, you have to make all the people lose. And the games are based on insecurity and are opposing of the way to raise leaders. Damn. What a revelation. What a revelation. When I travel to developing countries, I am made especially aware of how alien the idea of empowerment can be to emergent leaders. In cultures where you have to fight to make something of yourself, the assumption often is that you need to fight others to maintain your leadership. But that reflects a scarcity mindset. The truth is that if you give some of your power away to others, there's still plenty to go around. When I teach the law of empowerment in emerging countries, I usually ask a volunteer to come up so that I can show visually what happens when a leader tries to keep others down instead of raising them up. I ask the volunteer to stand in front of me, and I put my hands on his shoulders. Then I begin pushing him down. The lower I want to push him, the more push him down, the lower I want to push him, the more I have to bend down to do it. And as I push him lower, I go lower. And that's the same way it is in leadership. To keep others down, you have to go down with them. And when you do that, you lose any power to lift others up. Oof. What a visual. What a visual. And one of our BIC amazing members, Federica, she mentioned this on our call, and just the way she expressed it, it was like, it like really connects with you, you know, like that visual is so important. Like if you're going to put someone down, realize that you're also putting yourself down, because it takes more energy to actually push someone down. Like, why would you ever want to do that? It's silly. Barriers to empowerment. Leading well is not about enriching yourself. It's about empowering others. Leadership analysts Lynn, Larry, and John say that the empowerment leadership model shift away from the position power to people power, and within which all people are given leadership roles so that they can contribute to their fullest capacity. Only empowered people can reach their potential. When a leader can't or won't empower others, he creates barriers within the organization that followers cannot overcome. If the barrier remains long enough, then the people give up and stop trying, or they go away to another organization where they can maximize their potential. And when leaders fail to empower others, it is usually due to the three main reasons. The number one barrier to empowerment is desire for job security. The number one enemy of empowerment is the fear of losing what we have. Wow. The number one enemy of empowerment is the fear of losing what we have. Weak leaders worry that if they help subordinates, they themselves will become dispensable. But the truth is that the only way to make yourself indispensable is to make yourself dispensable. In other words, if you are able to continually empower others and help them develop so that they become capable of taking over your job, you will become so valuable to the organization that you become indispensable. And that's a paradox of the law of empowerment. What if I work myself out of a job by empowering others, you may ask, and my superiors don't recognize my contribution? That can happen in the short term, but if you keep raising them up as leaders and empowering them, you will develop a pattern of achievement, excellence, and leadership that will be recognized and rewarded. And if the teams that you lead always seem to succeed, people will figure it out that you are leading them well. That's beautiful. Number two, the number two barrier to empowerment is the resistance to change. Nobel Prize winning author John Steinbeck asserted, "It is the nature of a man as he grows older to protest against change, particularly change for the better." By its very nature, empowerment brings constant change because it encourages people to grow and innovate. Change is the price of progress. That's not always easy to live with. Wow, change is the price of progress. Most people don't like change, and that's a fact. Yet, one of the most important responsibilities of leaders is to continually improve their organizations. And as a leader, you must train yourself to embrace change, to desire it, to make a way for it. Effective leaders are not only willing to change, they become change agents. Number three, the lack of self-worth is the third barrier to empowerment, the lack of self-worth. John Pierce observed, "You can't lead a cavalry charge if you think you look funny on a horse." That's a good one. Self-conscious people are rarely good leaders. They focus on themselves, worrying how they look, what others think, whether they are liked. They can't give power to others because they feel like they have no power themselves. And you can't give what you don't have. The best leaders have a strong self-worth. They believe in themselves, their mission, and their people. As author Buck Rogers says, "To those who have confidence in themselves, change is a stimulus because they believe one person can make a difference and influence what goes on around them. These people are the doers and motivators. They are also the empowerers." Only secure leaders are able to give themselves away. Mark Twain once remarked, "The great things happen when you don't care who gets the credit." But I believe you can take a step further. I believe that the greatest things only happen when you give others credit. One time, Vice Presidential candidate Admiral James declared, "Leadership must be based on goodwill. It means obvious, wholehearted commitment to helping others." What we need for leaders are men of heart who are so helpful that they, in fact, do away with the need of their jobs. But leaders like that are never out of a job, never out of followers. Strange as it sounds, great leaders gain authority by giving it away. If you aspire to be a great leader, you must live by the law of empowerment. The law of empowerment. Strong. That's a very strong statement. Here's the president of empowerment. One of the greatest leaders of the United States was also known for his humility and willingness to give his power and authority to others, Abraham Lincoln. The depth of his security as a leader can be seen in the selection of his cabinet. Most presidents pick like-minded allies, but not Lincoln. At a time of turmoil for the country, when factious were strong, Lincoln brought together a group of leaders who could bring strength through diversity and mutual change. One Lincoln biographer said that this of One Lincoln biographer said this of his method: for a president to select a political rival for a cabinet post was not unprecedented, but deliberately to surround himself with all of his disappointed antagonists seemed to be courting disaster. It was a mark of sincere intentions that Lincoln wanted advice of the men as strong as himself or stronger, that he entertained no fear of being crushed or overhidden by such men, revealed either surpassing naivete or tranquil confidence in his power of leadership. Lincoln's desire to unify the country was more important than his personal comfort. His strength and his self-confidence allowed him to practice the law of empowerment and bring strong leaders into his circle. The desire to unify the country was more important than his personal comfort. Finding strong leaders to empower. Lincoln displayed the ability to empower others again and again. That played a major role in his relationships with his generals during the Civil War. In the beginning, he had trouble finding worthy recipients of his confidence. When the Southern states seceded, the finest general in the land went south to serve the Confederacy. But Lincoln never lost hope, nor did he neglect to give his leaders power and freedom, even when that strategy had failed with previous generals. So, for example, in June 1863, Lincoln put the command of the Army of the Potomac into the hands of General George Meade. Lincoln hoped that he would do a better job than had preceding generals Ambrose and Joseph. Within hours of Meade's appointment, Lincoln sent a courier out to him, and the president's message in part said, "Considering the circumstances, no one ever received a more important command, and I cannot doubt that you will fully justify the confidence which the government has reposed in you. You will not be hampered by any minute instructions from these headquarters. Your army is free to act as you may deem proper under the circumstances as they arise. All forces within the sphere of your operations will be held subject to your orders." As it turned out, Meade's first significant challenge came as he commanded the army at a small Pennsylvania town named Gettysburg. It was a test that he passed with authority. In the end, though, Meade was not the general who would make full use of the power of Lincoln's offered. It took Ulysses S. Grant to turn the war around, but Meade stopped Lee's army when it counted, and he prevented the Confederate general from moving on Washington. Lincoln's use of the law of empowerment was as consistent as Henry Ford's habit of breaking it. When his generals performed well, Lincoln gave them the credit, and when they performed poorly, Lincoln took the blame. Lincoln expert Donald T. Phillips acknowledged, "Through the war, Lincoln continued to accept public responsibility for battles lost or opportunities missed. Lincoln was able to stand strongly during the war and continually give power to others because of his rock-solid security." Here's the power of empowerment. You don't have to be a leader of Lincoln's caliber to empower others. The main ingredient for empowering others is a high belief in people. If you believe in others, they will believe in themselves. If you believe in others, they will believe in themselves. When I receive an encouraging note from someone close to me, I tuck it away and save it. I cherish such things. Years ago, I received a note from Dan Rayland, the one person outside my family whom I have probably worked hardest to empower over the years. Dan was my executive pastor when I was at Skyline. Here is what Dan wrote. "John, the ultimate in mentoring has come to pass. I am being asked to teach on the topic of empowerment. I can do this only because you first empowered me. The day is still crystal clear in my mind when you took a risk and chose me as your executive pastor. You trusted me with significant responsibility, the day-to-day leadership of the staff and ministries of your church. You released me with authority. You believed in me, perhaps more than I believed in myself. You demonstrated your faith and confidence in me in such a way that I could tap into your belief, and eventually it became my own. Wow, what a line. I'm so grateful for your life-changing impact on my life. Saying thank you hardly touches it, and I love and appreciate you is better. Perhaps the best way I can show you my gratitude is to pass on the gift you have given me to other leaders in my life. Dan. I am grateful to Dan for all he has done for me, and I believe he has returned to me much more than I had given him. And I genuinely enjoyed the time that I've spent with Dan, helping him grow. The truth is that empowerment is powerful, not only for the person being developed, but also for the mentor. Enlarging others makes you larger. Dan has made me better than I am, and not just because he helped me achieve much more than I could have done on my own, but also because the whole process made me a better leader. That is the impact of the law of empowerment. And it is an impact that you can experience as a leader as long as you are willing to believe in people and give your power away. Enlarging others makes you larger. Here's how you can start applying the law of empowerment into your life today. Number one, how would you categorize yourself in the area of self-worth? Are you confident? Do you believe you have value? Do you operate from an assumption that you have positive things to offer other people and your organization? Are you willing to take risks? If you rate yourself low in the area of security, you will have a hard time with the law of empowerment. You will need to take positive steps to add value to yourself or to explore why your self-worth is so low. Number two, are you someone who believes in people? Make a list of the people who work for you. If there are too many to list, then write the names of the closest to you. Next, rate each person's potential, not current ability, on a scale from 1 to 10. If the numbers are low, then your belief in the people is probably not very high. And until you change that, you will have difficulty empowering others. Begin dwelling on people's positive qualities and characteristics. Look for people's greatest strengths and envision how they could leverage those strengths to achieve significant things, and imagine what individuals could become if they made the most of their gifts and opportunities. Then help them to do so. Number three, if your natural inclination is to build and hold on to power, then you must experience a paradigm shift. To become an empowering leader, start by selecting your best people and setting them up for success. Train them, give them resources, and then help them set accomplishable goals that will help you and the organization. Then give them the responsibility and authority to follow through. And if they at first fail, help them. Keep trying until they succeed. Once you experience the joy and organizational effectiveness of empowering others, you will have a hard time not giving your power away. Yeah. You know, and that is probably the most important thing in life. Shoot, life, business, running a business, like you have to have this. I love that line. Giving your power away is not so literal. It's more of like being able to do exactly what Dan received. He's like, perhaps the best way that I can show gratitude is to pass on the gift that you have given me to others in my life. So strong, so effective. I love this chapter so much. In the next chapter, we're actually going to be talking about the law of the picture. People do what people see. People do what people see. And that is chapter 13 out of 21. So I will see you in the next one. Make sure to hit like, make sure to subscribe. We are reaching a whole nother level with Billionaire. I'm so excited for what's gonna be happening with this particular channel, because we're gonna be doing a lot more content. We're gonna be producing a lot more information for those that want to increase their personal and financial freedom. And I'm so excited for what's to come, because honestly, this whole entire year has been a year of growth, a year of self-reflection, a year of really understanding what it is that we want to do, for, again, like putting in that focus, that intentionality. And I'm so excited for what's to come, because if you are here, it means that you are one of the strong people that can go out there and make a change in the world. And it only takes one after another, one after another, one after another. So with that in mind, I'll talk to you soon. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you.